There we go.
There we go. All right, welcome. Now we're officially in a meeting. um, so yeah, did you both have a chance to take a look at that agenda, which kind of just reflects roughly what we talked about when we last met?
Yes.
All right. I think we were just going to talk about language, like describing the trust and stuff, and then talk about the 23rd a little bit. Get that actually. I can pull that up too. Here we go. Yeah, so yeah, I got it. Would it be helpful if I put that on screen? Yeah. Would it be helpful if I mean, I don't know, it's a pretty basic agenda, but should I share that?
It's up to you. I have it pulled up. It's
Okay, yeah,
much,
okay.
yeah, if the like
I
needs it.
don't have it pulled up and I can't find it.
It's
So
okay. Oh,
I'm
there you go.
really nailing this chair thing right now.
All right, all good. These are, the spirit is informal here. So yeah, so I think we had said we would talk a little bit about like, kind of per Alex's idea, sort of just talking it's about like language we use to describe the trust and you know maybe developing some sort of common you know elevator pitch or a list of basic talking points as far as how we introduce ourselves and whatnot, kind of inspired, I think, Alex mentioned by the work we did when we were out on the street at the fall festival. And then maybe do a little update on the 23rd. And then we had kind of talked about maybe drafting a community event list, but we could work on this or not. Oh, yeah. And then I did, are there minutes here? Darn it. Oh, sorry. The thing you guys had, I sent had minutes. We can just, do I have that here? Should we approve minutes or should we just wait till next month? And
I think we can approve minutes.
okay. Great. Alex, approved?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, there you go. So yeah, but does this make sense as an order to go in, or we can talk about the 23rd first, or what would you two like to do?
Um, well, I do mind if we do the 23rd first, just because I think it might be easy, like this is what the agenda is
Sure.
probably gonna look like. Am I
Sure.
allowed to share?
Try.
Let's see. All right. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is John Hornick's kind of plan in terms of the event. It will be the 23rd of January from 7 to 9 or 7 to 8:30. 7 to 8:30 or 7 to 9 in the town room, but hybrid. So Rebecca Frick will introduce it on behalf of League of Women Voters. Then Gaston is going to also introduce things. I'm going to speak a little bit about the need for affordable housing in town. Laura Baker is going to talk about development and use East Gables as kind of a example of how to go through the process. Then Tom from City Housing is talking about financing. And Keith from Wayfinders is going to talk about legislative advocacy and kind of the work that the region is trying to do together. And then John Hornick will talk more about local advocacy and how to build a culture of yes in my backyard, not no in my backyard. And then there will be a discussion about potential next steps. There are some ideas about what we could talk about. And then in terms of, yeah, that's basically just the work that they were planning on doing in terms of, putting together a flyer and that sort of thing, and then who we would share those things out to. So I think from the trust perspective, it would probably be making sure whoever the list is that gets updates about when the meetings are happening and whatnot, that list gets invited to this event.
For sure.
I think the League of Women Voters is going to take the lead on setting up like a registration form. Obviously, once we have a flyer together, it'd be good to put on the town website and the town and our particular page. And then I think there will be some other kind of co-sponsor. So I think the bid, John has asked the bid to co-sponsor and the Chamber of Commerce and the Community Safety Social Justice Committee, I think Human Rights Commission. So some of the other town boards as well. And
Gotcha.
then I'm trying to think if there were any other community agencies he was planning on reaching out to. I don't think so. But just trying to think about any other ways that we could share things out. So
Okay.
that was kind of where we were.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would ask, actually, Alex, do you have responses before I like?
Yeah, first of all, Allegra, thank you for working on this. That looks great. That looks like an awesome outreach opportunity. I know later on the agenda we'll talk about materials that we'll produce as a subcommittee, but you said that event is January 23rd, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. So that I think that's a nice target date for us to have a, let's front load the stuff that you need for that, whatever is helpful, and everything we can do to support that. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into this maybe naturally when we get into that name, but it might be cool to sort of like, for the three of us. So I guess Allegra, you'll kind of like Rebecca would intro it, and then you would sort of be the next. You'd be the first kind of core content piece of talking about need, right?
Yes.
So I mean that would be an interesting opportunity for us to sort of try some initial talking points that we can, maybe draft together on just on who the trust is and your relationship with trust and and then I think like content wise, I guess like it's definitely developer. I mean, I like heavy. I think so I think the trick is going to be making sure we encourage them to sort of stay in the lanes that we're carving out for them, and I think I think that's doable. I mean, I think they're all bright in different ways. And like Keith, I think they've been doing a lot of policy stuff at Wayfinders. So I think that's key. The other, thing is just sort of like thinking about like what do we want the audience to like walk away with, like and possibly what we want them to do concretely, just like thinking in terms like, I mean, some of this stuff can get pretty wonky, and I'm just sort of like wondering, like, have you guys thought about like, what are you hoping for like folks do, upon like,
Yeah, so I do think that that was part of what John's vision for the discussion piece is going to be, to kind of have a larger group discussion about some possible next steps, and then from that, again, probably I would suggest to create a list that can then be emailed out to whoever had signed up as a participant to say, like, these are a reminder of things that we said we might do. I mean, I think that he's certainly been driving the bus a lot in terms of content, which is great. I mean, I think that's part of what I would envision this smaller group to do. And like, hopefully maybe some of those people who attend the meeting on the 23rd would then attend the next subcommittee meeting of one of our committees. So I think that could be that is one concrete thing that I've said, like, as a trust member, I think it would be great if some of those people who might be interested in attending this then say, oh, hey, wait, I want to follow up on the work that the development committee is doing, or this committee or that committee. So, I mean, I think that's one concrete way that I've been looking at it, but I think, there are plenty of things, if somebody needs to advocate for X project, like how do we do that?
Sure.
What are the right steps to take to?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm curious too, like about, and I didn't get to read the second half of the thing, but I saw like I saw West Pomeroy on there, but I didn't see it,
Yeah.
like, like does he have specific? I just wasn't able to read the second half of that memo with the.
I will send it to
Yeah.
you all as well.
Okay.
I think that part of that is there had been a lot of discussion prior to the potential for the siting of the fire station there to be housing
Okay.
along West Pomeroy.
Is that Hickory Ridge? Do I have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Got it.
So I think that there's always going to be a group of people in Amherst who are arguing against what a group of other people in Amherst are arguing
Sure,
for.
yeah.
So I think that there are still some kinks from his perspective on the plan for the fire
Well,
station.
yeah.
So,
And I guess like what because that's fine. And I guess part of the luxury of like this being like a League of Women Voters thing is like,
mhm.
like he can advance whatever he feels strong. Like we don't have to have like trust consensus on like,
Right.
what John's like vision. You know what I mean? 'Cause it's
Mhm.
not it's not like it's one among many. Which is great. Um, but I'm just thinking also just about like um even with the specifics of sites aside, just thinking about like getting people involved in projects versus like, I think it's worth thinking content wise, like, what are the two or three like basic themes, you want audience members to leave with that they maybe didn't have when they came in. So I guess maybe like both like maybe it's like what are the key points of knowledge that we think they need to understand, and then what are the what do we hope they do with that? That's maybe already in motion, that second part. But I think like because like I think what can happen with this sort of thing is if it gets technical, like how do if I'm random League of Women Voters member, how do I relate to the juncture when Tom Kagelman goes to MHIC or mass housing to get financing, like you don't really,
Right.
is the so like so that's not to say we shouldn't include Tom. It's more to say like to like encourage like creative thinking on like what are the key things that this particular audience needs to know,
Right.
like so I think to the degree you can be an advocate for just asking those questions, as as planning happens, that's that probably be good, but
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that there are possibly some technical pieces that are over the heads of most people who might show up to a zoning board meeting to say like, we like the idea of more affordable housing in our neighborhood. But, you know, I think that maybe part of the conceptualization of like, this is actually all the steps it takes to get a project done.
Sure, like the complexity of it. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think yeah, and I think too, like, like an example might be like, having Tom share like you can't really fund like a three-family building. Like we might love to see like a certain typology, or building typology, but if you want it to be all affordable, that means it has to get funded in a certain way, and that funding wants 20 units. It doesn't want 8 units. Like points like that, I think can actually help like add to the conversation to some degree, because like then random audience members like, oh, I want more housing, but like why do they have to always do like 5-story things? Like that helps gives them a little more understanding, to so I think maybe like that kind of thing. So I think point being, I think there's ways to nuance it, but
Right.
just sort of like having some attention to it. And I would really encourage Gaston in that too, like because he can kind of, if he's moderating, he can, like, I think he'll be good at getting some points out. Um, I think he's probably like talented in that regard as far as being like thinking on his feet as far as like how could we ask this speaker to speak to something, um, in that regard. But okay. The other thing too, I want to just zooming out from content um, is just the sort of what's the flow of things. So we're going to be, and just is how it is. I'm hopefully gonna have a flyer next week as well for a thing on January 7th. So for the housing reduction plan, so that'll be beginning to talk about bigger picture goals. So that'll happen. Then this will be the 23rd, and then there will be in early to mid Feb. Right now, we're targeting I think February 4th for this thing. For a sort of a facilitated exercise called like scenario planning stuff, but like we can definitely push that by whatever it is by the 23rd. We'll know what it is, I guess. So we'll have an opportunity. It's like, hey, if you're interested in this, you can come back and dig into the weeds even more, in a couple weeks. So that'll fit nicely. I'm a little like, we're probably going to compete a little bit on, not compete, but I guess I'm thinking about the 7th versus the 23rd and wondering how we can make them complement each other in communications. I'm trying to go back to this flyer. Yeah, I have to think about that a little more. Like, I don't know. Do either of you have thoughts on this? On how we can kind of differentiate these?
So the housing production plan meeting is,
So that will, oh, I lost my tab with all of you. Hold on. The housing production plan meeting is kind of in a series. So we'll, at that point, have a mostly complete housing needs assessment, or should. So we'll get a rehash of that. But basically what we'll do is like, well, actually I shouldn't speak because it's Barrett will be running it. But the goal is to sort of like move from like needs analysis into goal development for the housing reduction plan, and to get feedback specifically on goals. So I guess in that sense, it'll be a little more interactive. What I don't know, so my understanding, I thought they were. My sense is that they're trying to design something that's a little more drop-in oriented, like 4 to 6:30. So like people can come, kind of. I didn't hear it. Sorry. What were we smiling at? Oh,
There's a package being
oh,
delivered. Very
oh,
exciting.
I was like, okay.
Sorry.
um, the so yeah, I guess they're trying to do maybe some sort of drop-in thing from like 4 to 6:30. So where end of your day or beginning of your evening or whatever. I don't know though if they're taking that approach, how they're going to impart findings. If they're doing like in some sort of presentational way, maybe they'll have like interactives or something like table based, something like that. Um, so people can kind of it's asynchronous maybe, but in any case, so that'll be about like engaging people on goals. Maybe a little bit of that seems like might emerge. Um, yeah, I guess maybe what I'm struggling with is like, does it make sense to introduce the idea of this housing production plan process in the League of Women Voters thing?
I mean, I think
I think,
that it could. I mean, I think that could be something that I could discuss. I'm sorry. Nola. Shh.
oh, your dog was barking. Okay.
Yeah.
What's- oh,
There, something is happening outside and it's very exciting. Um, I think that it would make sense to talk about the housing production plan, especially in terms of the idea of the need for housing in Amherst. And I do think there had been some discussion around when, what the timing would be if there was this housing production plan meeting in January, but I think it was just like there wasn't going to be enough time to put together an event prior to it.
yeah, I mean, so maybe like you could even just like intro, because like hopefully we can pull most of what you share from the needs assessment.
Mhm.
Um, and you can even just intro and say, hey, we're in the midst of this, this housing production plan development process. Here's some information from the needs assessment. You can talk about the next event, and we can come back to that too at the end. I mean, and if it's hard to know what we're going to have this meeting on the 7th, then we have a trust meeting on the 9th. And I encourage Tony to sort of like, we're going to carve out, I think, a fair amount of space on the 9th to follow up, to have a more sort of intimate conversation about goal with a smaller group, of the trust. So maybe there will be goal stuff to share um, with the group on the 23rd.
Mhm.
It's hard to know like how articulated those will be until after the 7th and the 9th, I guess.
So, and I guess, so if you look at, I did send John's kind of outline. I think I think John had plugged in a bunch of goals that he sees as goals, but I think if we can shape that based on the 7th and 9th discussions, because that would be the part that Gaston is leading, and really the hope was to kind of see what the community feel is versus, imposing goals on them, but also like coming with goals in the back of our mind in case nobody has any goals. I think that's kind of what John was describing, but I think that that's an important piece to know, that actually, yes, on the 7th and the 9th, there will have been 2 conversations about goals that have already also drawn from some of the community input, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This question is, I'm just like, right, I was reading through the second page now. So yeah, we actually do have an interesting pipeline, surprisingly enough. Uh, okay. And this is just to-dos. All right. Yeah, I mean, I almost think like maybe the thing, and we'll have to be sort of, it'll have to be kind of, to be determined, but maybe if we have some sort of articulated goals by the 23rd, and I think it's fairly likely that we will, they
Mhm.
won't be, I think we could still, and it would be useful to still refer to them as draft. And I think they probably will still be effectively draft goals on the 23rd. But maybe if there's a way to insert, I mean, like, content wise, and this, I don't think it makes sense to add a person because there's a fair number of people on here already, but like, maybe at the end of the presentation of the three folks,
Mhm.
or perhaps at the end of your remarks, but like floating those big picture goals, that those big picture draft HPP goals, to say, hey, this is what the town is looking at now. That might be a useful way to get that info out there, and that might be a helpful prompt for group discussion too. Might help focus some of those different action opportunities. The trick is going to be, we're not going to know until, like, this planning group probably won't be able to get their hands on those the ninth, but then in some sort of usable format, probably not until the next week, which will be the um, like the 13th. So it'll be 10 days, hopefully, between, we'll either have something clean or not have something clean, as of the 13th, and then so yeah, so maybe let's just keep that in mind for working those into the program. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And we can, depending on what, I guess I'm not sure how neatly they will, process wise, how that's going to work, how they're going to go from, you know need data, public survey that's ongoing, into one public forum, into a trust meeting. Like, how refined will those goals be after those steps? I don't know. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. But if there's some, I'm hoping there's some concrete stuff at that point, and then that might be like a good. I guess my meta hope here is that, like, people are aware that there's stuff underway already outside of that. They're not starting from scratch in this meeting, I guess.
Right, right,
You know.
right, right.
Um, so
And I think, if we, maybe Rebecca can say, this is a meeting, a community organized meeting in the, but
sure.
going on in the greater context of a meeting that, of a process that the town has undertaken with a consultant body that,
Sure.
something like that, verbiage is slipping my mind right now, but.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. So I think, okay. And then, and then there's, to some degree, like, we'll see how many folks are frequent flyers or how many folks are brand new,
Mhm.
kind of go from there. But, um, well, this all sounds good. Is there other stuff we should talk about for the 23rd?
I mean, I think the only other thing would be like night of stuff, but I don't really feel like that's stuff we need to get into here
Yeah,
necessarily.
you and I
Like,
can sideline about a plan for that. That sounds good.
yeah.
I guess the one thing I'll say just now is, and I need to learn more, but if we want to do it hybrid, probably we will need speakers to be, like, at council seats,
Mhm.
right? Like, we're not gonna be able to set it up like with, like, everybody clustered at a table in front of an
Mhm.
audience, because that will preclude the hybrid capacity.
Right. And would people need to bring their own laptop, or as long as they're like pressing the little button on the table, they can be heard, but it wouldn't be like us on a
believe
screen like this?
I believe as long as they're at the table, they're good. I'll confirm.
Oh,
All right. Um, cool. So yeah, so we can follow up with that on the specifics of that. But so should we talk about language?
Yeah, let's do it.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, so I spent some time looking at what's out there. The answer is not much, and not much of it is great. Honestly, Mass Housing Partnership, I think, has the best kind of quick explanation of municipal affordable housing trusts in their guidebook. But even then, like by their own admission, it becomes really technical really quickly. And that's something I think I've been struggling with, is because to understand what we are and what we do and how much strength comes really from our flexibility, you have to have a basic understanding of the normal budgeting process.
The
Um,
whole the what the
like the normal budgeting process for things like CPA funds and town budget cycles. So without explaining that, it's hard to explain why
why
we're
flexibility?
different and matter. Yeah, basically. So there's, I think that I was thinking about a couple different strategies for this that could help. So I'll mention a couple and we can engage with whoever you all want to start. The first one is honestly, a lot of this feels like it would be more helpful as a video, honestly, where you could pair graphics with text to explain, because I think that in like 2 minutes, like not quite TikTok length, right? A little bit longer, but I think in like 2 minutes, you could give enough of a quick rundown that people understand. And if you're pairing that with graphics, could really reinforce this idea of like, we are able to fill in funding gaps, and here's why these funding gaps exist in projects, even though ultimately a lot of our money still comes from the town, but why the town can't fill those without us, basically. I think could be helpful. Another thing is obviously leaning into precedent and looking at either like the Ball Lane project that isn't called Ball Lane anymore, that I keep forgetting the new name of Amherst Community Homes, maybe. Yeah.
That's the one.
Okay. Um, or looking at some of the previous projects and doing like kind of a reflective where we talk about how that process worked and how we were a key player in that. I think I know Allegra, are you still writing with the Amherst Indie?
yes, sometimes.
Okay. I thought maybe that'd be something we could pursue in the future. I know, just speaking for myself, that's not something I can do for the next like 2 weeks. Like I got to get through the house first. But then an idea of sitting down with trust members like yourself, Allegra, but trust members who are here for some of the previous projects as well, and gather insight and write like one or two short articles as a reflective that we could maybe co-publish in like the current and Indian on our website, and see how we can do reach out for that, as a very succinct concrete example that we can point to when, if people are still confused, be like, hey, here's the real example of something we funded and how we mattered in it. And then I know I talked about a flyer, and we can still talk about some of the language for that. I think a pamphlet makes more sense, honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, because I do think we need to give enough of a background on normal financing strategies if like the trust isn't in play, that people understand how we're different. So some spatial division between that might be helpful. Um, but yeah, those were the things that were circulating to start with. Then the other question is, we had talked about kind of the elevator pitch, and I'm struggling with how technical we need to go on that. Um, I'm like in a weird jargony headspace right now because I'm just head swimming with final stuff and housing policy classes. But I know that the jargon is really, really inaccessible for people. So it becomes a question of, is it okay if we come up just with a succinct statement of our goals? I know we have one on our website, but it's maybe a little clunky. Something really quick, one or two sentences, without explaining means. Like if we just talk about inns and what we're trying to do, is there value in that, or does that not make sense unless we pair that with a little bit of an explanation of how we do that? So that's what I was hoping we could talk about today, some wherever we want to start with that.
So I guess my perspective would be anti-jargony, just in terms of like who, if I'm giving an elevator pitch, I would imagine it's to somebody who doesn't really have much footing in affordable housing financing. And I do like the idea of having a video though, and I feel like if we had some sort of written stuff, we could have like a QR code to the video or something like that. So it, if somebody is interested in learning more and learning more technical pieces of it, that would be an accessible way to do that. And I think it's, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's very complex. So, how many pieces are you explaining at once versus like, what's the meat of what we want people to know? Like, is it the three goals that we have, three overarching strategic plan goals, or is it like, we give you money, but you have to ask us, and we need money for these things, not those things. So, I mean, I haven't thought much about what I would project into the world, but I guess my initial reaction would just be like trying to keep it as simple and less
Yeah.
jargony as possible, but
Yeah. And I would agree. I mean, Alex, I think to answer your specific question of like, do we need to pair um, the outputs with the process description? I think not necessarily, right? I know. I think. I mean, like for the phrase that comes to mind, just without any vetting, is just we catalyze affordable homes in Amherst, or we catalyze housing. Like, I mean, maybe catalyze is too jargony, but then like we could just that would stand by itself, like on the elevator, right? But then like if that were on our webpage, like you know, or on a flyer or whatever, like that's on the top, and then like the lower part is, and here's a little bit about how we do that, But I think I like the idea of a sentence or two being un, unconnected to the technicalities, you know.
Okay. Um, Another thing that I know it's like even in our action plan and a lot of our documents is talking about AMI. I know that's if we're trying to get away from jargon, something that's not super accessible for a lot of people when we're talking about 100% AMI, 110% AMI. What does that mean? Um, I know it's kind of trendy in planning documents right now to kind of quantify that with known positions, with known salaries. So be like, instead of talking about 60% AMI, talk about, somebody working in this position for AFD kind of thing, as something that's a little more quantifiable for people to understand. I don't know if that's something that would be helpful as well, but if so, I can certainly work on issue framing with that a little bit when we're talking about supporting creation of affordable units. That begs the question, affordable for who? And
Yeah.
maybe it's helpful if we have that. We're talking about homes that are affordable for teachers and firefighters and retirees and whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, and I, yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of flipping it into, yeah, striking AMI from our outward facing communications, like, um, at least the brief ones, you know. I guess I'm also just like, I like the idea of solutions, like if it's a solution frame, we are, serving, like this set of people, like, this set of teachers or, families, who are, like, who are heads of households, do X or Y, jobs, whatever.
Mhm.
Versus like, I feel like a lot of entry into housing talk, and I do this, is like it starts with need, and like it starts like it's easy to slip into a deficit frame as opposed to a solutions frame, like and I sometimes that deficit frame is helpful, but the trust as an active like solutions provider, I don't know if the deficit frame is as helpful,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess I'm also just thinking too about like deployment, right? Like what are the scenarios in which we need tools and what like and how do we build towards that? Like let's build like I mean I guess I am like the idea of like a video is cool, but like only but not if it takes a huge amount of inputs. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like because like I think it's kind of like I'm sitting here wondering like like what are the scenarios in which we need this language or this catchphrase or elevator pitch or whatever, I get thoughts on that. I think we have
Yeah.
public events.
Mhm.
Sort of web and print stuff. And then just like, sorry, I'm like, I don't have my notebook here, so I'm like,
I guess a question would be in terms of like the people who are thinking about financing, like if there was perhaps a goal that they're thinking about that was like, I don't know, having people donate stuff to the trust, whether it's like the interfaith agency or private donors, like like a pitch for that. And I don't know if that's something that they're considering or not, but just even just having conversations if we're talking to like Amherst College about land donation or something like how can we capitalize on the other resources we could bring to the table were we to have a spot to put them into. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
although I would imagine maybe somebody at an institution that we're talking about, like land donations, would have a basic understanding of this kind of stuff, but maybe not. I don't know.
yeah. So I will say for me, I was thinking about mostly like the block party, like that type of context for this, at least to start with, knowing we can continue to refine things and create things as needed later, but starting with just really general, which is why I was bringing up the issue of do we really need to go into financing mechanisms at all, and maybe not, because that doesn't matter as much to people who, if we're just trying to, you know, basically promote ourselves and help people understand that we exist and these are our general goals, was where I was thinking we maybe start with this. Um, and then, but yeah, I don't know. I'm open with that. So I've been taking notes as we're talking too, so I want to use it to workshop what I have. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like it's funny. I'm thinking of, the other night I went and spoke to a church group, and to their leadership group, and talked about some affordable housing stuff, and it wasn't technically on behalf of the trust, but like I might have referred to it, like, and yeah, I'm just thinking about like what, because and that was very much an audience that was very interested, and but also had a very basic level of literacy around affordable housing stuff, like most people, I mean, I mean, there's almost a level too where it's like our role is to, you can even get away, you can even put housing down for a minute and say like, we're trying to create opportunities for all kinds of people to live here, and broaden housing choices to do that, because make it really, that's kind of like, you know, in the, welcome everybody frame, it works with the church crowd, I guess, but, um, so yeah, it's kind of like the level of like what level of, I guess maybe the basic concept of housing is, that's one everybody can relate to. So maybe that is specific, like, and then that's the entry point, and then maybe the sort of 3 bullet description, which I think is separate from the goals.
Mhm.
Like maybe the 3 bullet description is, so like, we do that by, being timely about funding and, targeting specific demographics or whatever like what we want to say, but then it creates, oh, why is it important to be timely about funding? Then you have a conversation, and that's, you know, maybe those sort of like, maybe there are 3 hooks after the basic thing, um, I don't know. I'm into it. So
Yeah, so what I had drafted, and I can share this if it feels like it'd be helpful, but if you all would rather wait, I know we're running up on the end of our meeting as well. So we certainly don't have time to do line by line edits, but I want to make sure we take the time at some point to go through this. But if you want, I can read what I have as a starting
Sure.
place, and it can at least seed the conversation for the next time we get to meet. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay. So I had the as like our tag, a group working to create and maintain affordable housing opportunities in Amherst today and tomorrow. The Municipal Affordable Housing Trust is made up of town staff and residents who are working to promote affordable housing projects that provide quality homes for Amherst residents at all stages of life. Primarily, we promote these goals by providing funding to developers, engaging in outreach around housing initiatives, and providing support and guidance to town government.
I like that. I mean, that's succinct. It covers everything, I think, pretty like basically, with like simple language that is understandable and accessible. Um,
Can you say the first sentence again?
Yep, as a group working to create and maintain affordable housing opportunities in Amherst today and tomorrow.
Yeah, I like it. Um, I have a long-standing quibble with trying to swap in homes for housing wherever I can.
Okay, yep.
but I'm not quite sure if it works here, but like, just, but that I think that's a really, really over both the first sentence and the whole thing. Like I agree with Allegra. Like I think it's like a really like accessible and like at the right depth of complexity. Why don't we what do we think about sharing that with the group next Thursday?
I'm fine with that. Yeah,
Can you email that to me? I can put it in the packet
for sure.
and make the two of you you know lift you both up as you know as busy as worker bees and getting some stuff done. Um, and yeah, we can call it draft and just sort of. I don't think we have to talk about it, but I think I don't know. I think it's a good like. I think it's a great report out at this juncture, for the larger group, like to sort of just demonstrate like how this effort is launching. Allegra, could
Yeah,
you imagine saying that? Um,
If I had it written in front of me.
yeah, but like, could you imagine saying that to
yeah.
that group on the
Yeah,
23rd? Like,
no,
would that feel
absolutely.
good?
I think
Yeah.
that's I
Okay.
mean, I like that a lot. I think it's very
Uh,
simple. But it says what it needs to say and shows that there are different ways that we do things. So I think I would definitely use that as long as the rest of the trust is on board.
Sure. Um, great.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah, if we could share that with the rest of the trust and get some feedback on it. I don't think it'd be helpful to do the line by line editing with everybody
No.
there, but if we can at least take some preliminary feedback and then in our next meeting go through it, the three of us, and
Yeah. Yeah. I will. I think Gaston will probably be good at preventing line by line where it's not really truly necessary. But yeah, I mean, even just even you reading it, I think would be helpful, and and inviting, inviting like follow up. People can email you or whatever, with thoughts, and we can bring it back here. It doesn't need to be done anytime. We don't have a deadline, but I think it's just a good articulation of where we're at.
okay, awesome. And then once we get feedback from that for our next meeting as a subcommittee, I can try and have at least a draft of some sort of flyer or handout that's really, really surface level for now, but with the goal of having things at least in a draft form that Allegra you can use with Gaston at your meeting for League of Women voters, if that feels helpful. Great.
Great. So did we do a repeat meeting for this? Did I send
I
something?
think so, yeah.
I just chatted to you. You did.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Is there anything else we should put on the agenda for that for now, or
I think if we move the whatever, I think there was a list of community events. Oh,
oh yeah.
so
Good call.
if we talk about that next time, because I think
Yeah. And I think stuff could come up too, or and Allegra, do we want to prospectively hold space for the work on the 23rd? Like, we could invite John or Rebecca or whatever. Like,
I think that makes sense to invite them to come.
maybe we can just like check it. Maybe you can just sort of check in on where things are at, like a week in advance or something,
Yeah.
before our what is the January meeting? It's going to
I think
be
it's the 3rd. I think that was the first Monday or whatever the first Monday is. Not
um,
not Monday. What's today? I'm sorry.
Friday.
Friday.
Um,
Is
um,
it the
It is
3rd?
the third. Yeah, Allegra's right. It's the third.
actually, I might need to double check if I'm working on the 3rd.
Okay.
Um,
it is like vacation week for schools and
Yeah.
stuff, so
I
I
think
would imagine.
my spouse and I are trading off that week. I
Yeah.
forget. I have in front of me which days I'm covering, but yeah, but also too, like you two can meet without me too. That would be
Or if it makes more sense, I know it messes up the recurring meeting thing, but if we met on the 10th instead, then we would have had the 7th and the 9th meetings to draw from.
that's a good point, actually.
Unless that's too many meetings in a meeting week. But it makes sense if the content is what we need to be discussing.
What do you think, Alex? Could you do the 10th instead of the 3rd?
I believe so. Yeah.
Let me double check now that I've said that. But
Always good.
Yeah, yes, that should be fine. I might be joining from Indiana, but I can do that.
that's
Love
fine.
Indiana.
I'm
Let's
good on the 10th as well. So that is preferable for.
all right, I'm changing that to the 10th right now. 10:15 still work?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And then also just to plant the seed for you all, I have my schedule for next semester already. It's a lot looser than this semester. So I know, Greg, you mentioned at one point that you don't always super work on Fridays, that sometimes that's not like in an office day for you. So if you all wanted to revisit when our meetings were, I'd have a lot more flexibility then. Although the same time on Friday would still work for me then. So
Oh, and like our Fridays are good for you, I think, as I recall,
Fridays
right?
are my day off, but typically if there's like a morning meeting time, like a 9:15 during the rest of the week, usually I can squeeze
Squeeze it
that
in.
in.
All right. Let's check in January and
Oh.
see what.
yeah, that's
All
great.
right, cool. All right. This is great. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Bye.